Claude is not just one product anymore. Most people think Claude is just another chatbot like ChatGPT but with a different logo. But Anthropic has secretly turned Claude into a whole stack of tools. Claude AI, Cowork, Claude Code, the API, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. And if you're new to this, which statistically you probably are, this can get really confusing really fast. Very quickly, my name is Arman and I work as a non-technical agentic engineer at Clover Labs, which is one of the fastest growing AI startups in Toronto. I literally work every day as a software engineer without having a software engineering degree. So I know what it feels like to approach all of this with a non-technical perspective. I studied film. I know what it feels like to open one of these tools and just look at it and go, what the is going on here? And so I want to use my non-technical perspective to explain Claude to you. Not like an engineer who is trying to impress you or a tech bro who thinks every other model release is revolutionary. By the end of this video, you should know which Claude product you should use, what each of them is actually good for, and where you might be overcomplicating your life for no reason. Now, the easiest way to understand Claude is a ladder. Level 1 is Claude AI. This is the everyday app for thinking, writing, research, and documents. Inside that level, you do have a couple of power-ups like projects, artifacts, skills, and eventually MCPs and connectors, which we'll get into. Level 2 is Claude Cowork. This is where Claude starts working with your files, folders, and tools directly. Level 3 is Claude Code. This is where Claude starts helping you build software, automations, and apps. And then there's the API, which developers and companies use to put Claude inside of their products. The rule I use is simple. Use the lowest level to get the job done. That's the entire game. Now, before we even jump into all of the levels, there's one principle that you have to understand. And I know I said that I'm not going to explain this like a tech bro, but there are some principles from the tech world that are important to understand. And one of the biggest ones is garbage in, garbage out, which is basically that if you give Claude garbage context, you're basically going to get a garbage answer. And that's just the way that it is. And this is where, believe it or not, a lot of people get disappointed. They give Claude a vague question, Claude gives them a vague answer, and they go, this thing is stupid and it's not for me. But it's not that Claude wasn't able to do good work, it's that you couldn't define what good actually looks like. The way that I explain it to people is kind of like this. Imagine that Claude is just a really smart 5-year-old. It is smart enough to do a lot of the things that you don't want to think about. For example, if I asked a 5-year-old to go over there and grab me a cookie, it is smart enough to understand that it needs to walk there, grab a cookie, and walk back and give it to me. You don't have to explain the walking or the cookie or the table or why it's on there. But if there are 3 different types of cookies on the table and I wanted the chocolate chip one, but I didn't specify that, it might go and bring me the oatmeal raisin one. And then I'll get annoyed and say, why did you bring me the oatmeal raisin one? And it's not that Claude was stupid, it's just that I didn't specify what cookie I wanted. And that's basically the entire game with AI. The work just shifts. Instead of you spending a lot of your time doing the work manually, you'll spend more of your time explaining the task properly, deciding what context actually matters, and telling Claude what good actually looks like. And yes, I know that can feel counterintuitive and you're probably like, Arman, I thought this was supposed to reduce the work. And it does, just not instantly. Sometimes you have to put in more effort up front so that the next 10 times are dramatically easier. And that's why things like projects, skills, and saved context actually matter. They make it so that you don't have to sit there and explain the same task to Claude over and over again. So just keep that in the back of your mind for the rest of the video. Claude is not meant to be a mind reader. It's meant to be a collaborator. And it's super weak in the vague, but it's super powerful in the specific. Okay, so let's start with Claude AI. This is where most people should begin. Claude AI is a website or app where you open a chat and you just talk to Claude. If you're the type of person who spends their days thinking through ideas, summarizing notes, creating PDFs, or doing research, this is probably where you should begin. This is where you ask it to help you think and create a little bit of structure. Not just answer your questions, but actually help you think. A good use case for this would be to drop in a messy transcript and ask it to turn it into a polished LinkedIn post. That's something I've done personally. Or upload a massive PDF and ask for a plain English summary. Or even paste in an assignment brief that was written like the professor was actively trying to ruin your afternoon and ask it what it's actually asking you to do. Or use it to explore new ideas like quantum theories or your moral qualms between moral relativism and religion, which are both things that I have done, by the way. That is where Claude AI is at its best. And something a lot of people miss at this level is that Claude is already able to generate output for you. It can help you create documents, markdown files, PDFs, PowerPoints, Excel sheets, depending on your workflow. You don't have to jump ahead in the ladder to Cowork or Claude Code just because you want an output. A lot of the time, normal Claude is more than enough. And this is why I keep coming back to the ladder. It doesn't make any sense to climb the ladder because it sounds cooler or that's what's trending on social media right now. Use the lowest level that gets the job done. Now, about those power-ups that I spoke about. Claude AI also has something called projects and artifacts. Projects are for recurring context. If regular chat is like a one-off conversation, projects are a dedicated workspace for an area of your life or your work. If you're the type of person who keeps giving Claude the same type of context and information over and over again, then projects are probably for you. For example, you could have a YouTube project that includes your voice, the audience, your writing style, and so on. Or a school project with your course notes, rubrics, assignment formats, and so on. You could even use it for work by adding brand guidelines, company context, and examples. The value in that is that you're not starting from scratch every single time you open a new chat. To create a project, you're going to do the following. Navigate to Claude AI and click the project section in the left sidebar. You'll see a view of all of your current projects and the option to create a new one. When you're in your project, you can name it whatever you want, and you can write a brief description of what you're trying to achieve through the project. Once you've actually gone ahead and created the project, you'll see a section on the right side with memory, instructions, and files. Memory will auto-populate as you continue to have conversations within this project. You can add additional instructions there on how you want to think about certain problems, or you can paste specific examples of the workflows you're going to use inside the project. And for the files, they function as project-wide context. So you can start whatever chat you want, and the files you upload here will always be available in the chat whenever you ask for them. You don't have to go and upload them individually into the chat bar. Anything that is just one-off use that you wouldn't use across the project, you can just add to the chat as you normally do. Anything you want across the conversations should be added to this file section. Now, if you're anything like me, visuals can go a long way, and that's where artifacts come in. Artifacts are for when you want Claude to make something you can look at besides the chat. An artifact can be a document, a web page, a dashboard, a prototype, or anything else that you just visually want a representation of. For example, you could ask Claude to make you a one-page landing page, or a simple interactive budget calculator that you can tweak and see what different combinations work, or a content calendar view that you're using for your socials to map out when exactly certain pieces of content are going to go out. And keep in mind that all of this is still happening on that same Claude chat that you're going to use anyways. By doing this, you're not doing some elite developer thing. You're just using the parts of Claude that a lot of people miss. To use an artifact, all you have to do is just simply ask for it. Whether that's a Word doc, a PDF, a PowerPoint, an Excel sheet, a web page, all the other examples we gave before, all you have to do is just include the format that you want to see it in the prompt that you send. Now, these are pretty cool on their own, but Claude really starts to become powerful when you start adding skills, MCPs, and plugins. The simple version is that these are either things that make Claude better at specific tasks or allow it to communicate with external platforms. A skill is basically giving Claude a plain English instruction manual on how you want something done or how you want it to interact with a separate platform. An MCP or a plugin or a connector is basically giving Claude a bridge to be able to talk to those external platforms that you might use, like a calendar or Notion or GitHub or any other platforms that you might use for your day-to-day work. Now, this is where Claude gets really powerful, but it also gets slightly more complicated. So for this video, just understand the concepts. These tools allow Claude to become less of an average chatbot and more like a specialized assistant. I'll probably make a separate video on MCPs, connectors, and plugins, because that's a whole separate rabbit hole to begin with. But if that's something you would like to see, let me know in the comments. Now, once you've gotten value out of the Claude AI side of things, the natural next step is to ask, what else can Claude do for me? And that's where we take a step up and start talking about Claude Cowork. Think of Cowork as this simple analogy. If Claude is the brain, then Cowork is essentially giving it hands. Instead of just having conversations with Claude where it might give you certain outputs, you actually give it hands to take actions for you in a controlled environment with files, folders, and workspaces that you control. If you're the type of person who is tired of uploading context to projects or chats and likes to keep things organized on your local machine, then Claude Cowork is probably for you. A real example for me is I use it for my invoices. I track the work that I do at my job hourly. And so what I do at the end of my 2 weeks is I take screenshots of the hours that I worked and the projects that I worked on, and I drop them into a running Claude Cowork chat. And in that chat, I've already given Claude a template of what I want my invoices to look like. Because it's a running chat, it knows what number invoice we're actually on. And what it does is extract all of the hours and projects that I worked from the screenshots and populates that invoice that already goes to the right file path that I want, where all of my invoices live. And then I just have to verify all of the information is correct, and send it off to my employers. Now, could I do the same thing with the web app? Kind of, but I'd still have to download it and organize it myself, which is something I don't really want to do. Now, this is where prompting matters even more. A good prompt would sound like, here's a template of my invoice. Attach the invoice. Moving forward, I will be attaching screenshots of the hours that I worked and the projects that I worked on. My hourly rate is X dollars per hour. When I give you screenshots, I want you to calculate what amount is being charged, populate the invoice with the relevant hours and projects that I worked on, use the following naming convention, which is Arman Manji invoices number Y, add it to the folder called invoices on my desktop. A bad request would probably look like, here's access to my entire computer, I work X hours a week and I make Y dollars an hour. I need you to make invoices for me moving forward. Now, why is that a bad prompt? Well, number one, you haven't given it an idea of what you think a good invoice actually looks like. Number two, you haven't given it any naming conventions. Number three, you haven't mentioned where you would like to save the documents. And number four, you haven't scoped its access to a specific folder. So it doesn't need to interact with other files, or it doesn't have permission, more importantly, to interact with other files. Now, this is a really good example of what a garbage in, garbage out situation would look like. Somebody who sends that type of prompt, Claude might name it something different or put it somewhere that they didn't ask or didn't want it to be and basically go, Claude is so stupid and it's not for me. Of course, with a prompt like that, it's going to go sideways. Although, sometimes in my experience, Claude can surprise you. It is surprisingly intuitive. For example, you might ask, hey Claude, how do I make my life better? And it might say, liking and subscribing to Arman Manji's channel would be a start. Sometimes it is that good. But that being said, the more access that you give Claude, the more specific you need to be. Now, just to be clear, that doesn't mean you need to be technical, it just means you need to be clear about what you want. Now, if you're anything like me, at a certain point, you might ask yourself, what more can I do with Claude? And that answer would be the next level, which is Claude Code. Now, Claude Code is one of those things that you either love it or you hate it, and I understand both sides. The first time you look at any coding software, especially if you're a non-technical person, it kind of feels like you walked into a cockpit on an airplane and somebody's like, cool, so you're taking us to Vancouver, right? But Claude Code is a very important skill to learn, in my opinion, because it opens up a world that was locked behind knowing how to code. If you're not familiar, the plain English version of Claude Code is a coding assistant that helps you design software and apps just by describing what you want. You could use it for creating websites or even creating small apps that you either use for yourself or you sell to others. And the reason I like Claude Code as a non-technical person is not that it makes me a senior engineer, but it allows me to actually participate in building things. It allows me to say things like, hey, here's a process that I feel like is more difficult than it should be. Or here's an app that I feel like should exist in the world. Or here's something that I feel like we can automate, but I don't know how to do that. And by describing it to Claude Code, it can figure out the technical work needed to actually make it a reality. If you're the type of person who's infatuated by building software tools or websites, or even small little utilities for your own life, Claude Code would be a great place to start. Now, here are a couple of things that I have done as a non-technical person with Claude Code. I have built 2 iOS mobile apps, one that's a budget and debt tracker with an AI assistant baked in, and the second, a golf app that helps me track my handicap because I suck at the moment. I have built my own net worth tracker with it, I have built my portfolio site with it, I have built my friend's portfolio site with it, I've helped automate my friend's job search, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, not to mention all of the stuff that I do at work. But here's where I need to make an important point. There are 2 ways in my view that you can use AI. The first is to use it as an excuse to not learn anything. And the second is to use it as a way to learn more things faster. The first is a great way to outsource your brain and get worse at thinking. And the second is where you actually get good at using these tools. As you climb the ladder, the amount of things that you're going to have to learn does go up. But nobody's saying that you have to become a senior software engineer. You just have to become a bit more inquisitive. Ask Claude what it's doing. Ask why it made a decision. Ask what an API key even is. If you want to be really good with these tools, you have to ask questions constantly. Ask Claude, ask me, ask a technical friend, ask whoever, but ask questions. Now, if you've gotten to the point where you're starting to build apps, then you're probably going to eventually run into the API. The API is the part that most beginners can ignore, but you should at least understand what it is. API stands for Application Programming Interface, which is a horrible phrase, and so in English, that translates to an API is a way for one piece of software to talk to another piece of software. The best example that I can give is think of it like ordering at a restaurant. You're probably not going to enter the restaurant and go into the kitchen and start cooking for yourself. You'll sit down, talk to the waiter and tell, the waiter what you want, the waiter will then take that request back to the kitchen, and the kitchen will send something back. That's essentially what an API does. Your app will send Claude a request, Claude will process it, and then send it back. For example, if you're creating a finance app with AI built in, then Claude might be in the background to help create plans or create budgets or help summarize spending. Now, if you're just trying to write better emails or read large PDFs, then the API is probably not something you have to worry about. But if you're building a product, then you eventually will. So now here is the simple decision guide. If you need help thinking, writing, summarizing, researching, or understanding something, use Claude AI. If you keep doing the same kind of work and hate repeating context, use projects. If you want to see the output visually, use artifacts. If you want Claude to be better at specific repeatable workflows, look into skills. If you want Claude connected to external tools, calendars, databases, or Notion or GitHub or any other software that you use, that's where MCPs and connectors come in. If you want Claude working with your files, folders, and a workspace that you control, use Claude Cowork. If you want to build software, automations, websites, or apps, use Claude Code. If you want Claude inside your own product, then use the API. And again, the rule is use the lowest point on the ladder to get the job done. If you're just getting into this, do the thing that solves your problem first, and then graduate up the ladder once either workload increases or your curiosity does. And the nice part is that each stage teaches you principles that you're going to go on to use in later stages. Claude AI will teach you prompting and context. Projects will teach you reusable context. Artifacts can teach you how to turn ideas into outputs. Cowork will teach you how to supervise an AI working in an environment. And then Claude Code will teach you how to build with AI. You don't need to learn all of it at once, but you just need to start at the right level. The big idea is simple. Claude is not just one app anymore. It's a ladder. Most people are stuck using it as a slightly fancier search bar. But once you understand the ladder, you can stop asking what is the best Claude product, which is in fact the wrong question. The better question is what am I trying to get done and what Claude product helps me get there. And that's how you're going to avoid the trap of chasing tools and actually using AI to get things done.